is the goal here in terms of these policies? Is it to bring down house prices?
Price growth into something sustainable. So we're not trying to bring down house prices.
Looking to get into the market, if you're a young person looking at what's ahead of you, you definitely want to see house prices come down.
Our government's policies are not going to reduce house prices. We want house prices to grow sustainably. We don't want to see some of the growth that we've seen in some parts of the country where you're getting double-digit increases in house prices year on year.
If house prices don't come down, doesn't that mean that this system is stacked against young people? That it's just not going to work for them?
Sure. And Dave, we may have a difference of view about this. I have a strong view.
Guys, welcome back. What do you think of that? That's Claire O'Neill on Hack, talking to Dave Marchese. I find it really interesting because, Claire O'Neill is the same lady that said that, immigration is the backbone, or migration is the backbone of Australia, whilst basically opening the floodgates at around 560,000 people, which is just unbelievable in 2022, 2023. Now around 2023 to 2024, going on to 2025, we're going to be seeing around 400 to 300,000 people coming in. And then onwards, they're expecting around 255 year on year thousand people. So it's just interesting to see her take on it, her very blunt take on it. She definitely could have answered the question a little bit better, like the New Zealand housing minister, in my opinion. But as a person that's born, just before the new millennium, the way I've seen it all pan out, there's 1-bedroom apartments in Western Australia that have been sold with $100,000 worth of profit within a couple of months. I mean, and that's just on an apartment. I'm not talking housing. Housing's 4x that, in some cases 5x that, and 6. So it just depends on where in Australia, and obviously location. But overall, I just find it super discerning, a massive middle finger to the Australian people, a massive betrayal by the government. And it's gotten to the point now where I want you to think, going into this year's election, that I don't think it's going to cut it anymore voting in Dutton from the Liberal Party. I don't think, voting blue, and then if blue doesn't work out, voting back to red. That's not a democracy. That is basically just a planned overriding way of thinking that if one party doesn't do well, you jump to the other side. Doesn't mean anything these days. And you got people from One Nation like Pauline Hanson that actually makes more sense than the other two parties. I mean, how's that working out? And so, it's come at a massive cost, and Claire O'Neill clearly doesn't know what she's doing. And when answered, when she's poised with a simple question, she answers it in a way where there's no depth, there's no understanding from her side. So then we've got people that are clearly inept, incompetent, and don't know what they're doing, trying to make Australia better. But the cost of living has gone up, housing for young people has gone up, wages as a result of inflation have stagnated, and in most cases gone backwards. I know for myself, looking for a job recently, I couldn't believe how little remuneration there is these days. It's almost as if everything has gotten more expensive, cost of living, housing, and then the main source to actually try and counteract that hasn't caught up at all. So you've got basically wages that are sort of running at around 3%, or even not even that at the moment. They're supposed to be around 3% per annum, but they're not even close to that. So I just find it a massive betrayal, and I think a lot of people are hurting right now, especially for Christmas. Merry Christmas, everyone, by the way. This is a real pivotal time, and it's a real shocking time for a lot of families because, yes, there is one case that if houses do slide, it can be like Japan, where they had a massive growth and then they've basically had a massive slump. and then they haven't really recovered, or just about to recover just now, to get out of that recession. And there's people from Australia that are actually moving to Japan and buying a nice house, 3x2, whatever, for about $40,000 Australian. So of course you've got to marry a Japanese lady or whatever, but it's just, it's unbelievable how in Australia it is the most expensive in the world, most expensive, and you're paying for what? An old double brick 1980s built house, 1970s built house, which has evaporative cooling on the roof, and same with the units. I mean, the units are just absolutely, most of them not even renovated. They look terrible. And it's just an eyesore, and we're supposed to live in a first world country. It just doesn't make sense to me. Doesn't make sense to me at all. And you know what? I'm a simple dude. I just want a roof over my head, a nice bed, and if it gets hot on some days, a nice aircon. But other than that, I don't really need much. Yet in Australia, just to have the basics is almost like you're pleading, like Oliver Twist. Oh, can I please have some more? I mean, like, seriously. And I didn't read, I saw a video. So on the flip side, you've got people in the UK, you've got the elderly pensioners. Because of their high net immigration, you've got elderly pensioners that can't even put on the heater. You know what I mean? They've got mold growing in the roof because it's so cold. And you've got an old guy that's talking to the camera saying, oh, I've got my, my thermals on. He's got like 4 layers of thermals. I'm just like, oh my goodness, and that guy's in his late 70s, nearly 80. I'm just like, geez. So it really just goes to show that the government, no matter where you're watching this right now, your government, they do not care about you now. And when you're old, you're dead to them. Literally and metaphorically, you're dead to them. They want workers, they want worker bees, they want people that are producing something, and they will choose other people outside of the country, give them a better life than you had, even though you were actually born here. And most of the people, whether it be from India, Nepal, whatever, will come before you any day of the week. So it's really trying times for the Australian people, but also in the UK, they've got people from the Middle East, they've got people from Romania, Serbia, all the war-torn countries, probably other ones that I can't even think off the top of my head, but they are being flooded. India as well, no different. So mass immigration is coming, and it's to break down family values. They don't want you to have kids. They don't want you to have your own family, because they know that if you're alone, single, whatever, you're easier to control, you're easy to break down, you're easy to, I guess, basically isolate, which we've had a lot of isolation the last couple of years through COVID. So it's all by design. And Claire O'Neill is basically, she's failing the Australian people, and it's all by design. They know what they're doing. They talk as if they don't know what they're doing, but they definitely know what they're doing. And I just find that at this time of our lives, you really want to, I really want to say that I really, 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 really love Australia, and I think it's the best place in the world. But there's times like these where you go, if there was a war tomorrow, if there was a World War III or whatever, and they said, okay, we need to, basically enroll some young men, women, whatever, to fight for the country, I don't think I'd be fighting for the country. You know what I mean? I don't think I'd be basically putting my hand up and going, I love this country. I'm going to, the government, everyone, I'm going to fight for this country tooth and nail. I don't think so, and I can guarantee you the people that we're bringing in aren't going to be fighting for Australia either. So I think we're getting to that stage now where, as sad as it is, a lot of people just aren't able to, see much of a long-term future here in Australia. And it's really sad to see, especially people that have been born here, the second, third generation Australian. And I just find it really sad. So, but what do you guys reckon? Comment down below, like and subscribe. Do you find that, in this day and age, you're struggling to pay for your power, you're struggling to pay for your food, you're struggling to pay for your mortgage? And look, God forbid we don't have a backwards trend, because, someone could have got, a house loan out for $1 million. And if the house prices go back, then they'll then get a house worth 900, but then they've got a loan of $1.1 million to pay off, and that just is not good for the economy. And I guess it's a fine line we're walking at the moment in Australia, very fine line. And you've seen it in New Zealand. They've had a mass exodus of people wanting to leave New Zealand because they don't have enough jobs. And they do still have very high house prices in New Zealand. The median house price in New Zealand is about 1.3, I think it was, in Auckland. And outside skirts are around 700 to 800, thereabouts. But it is, I guess, interesting to see that, a lot of people are definitely feeling the crunch, and they definitely don't see much of a future in Australia because we are going towards or heading towards such an identity change. The referendum was the first thing by Albanese. He wanted people to not feel like Australia was their own piece of land or country. Now, we voted no, we succeeded in that, but that was by design to make you feel like you don't actually live in Australia, you don't actually own the land, the Aborigines do, right? So that's why they're pushing Aborigine flags on top of the Sydney Harbour Bridge, for example, and then obviously just lately Peter Dutton said that he doesn't want that anymore. So that was a smart tactic by Peter Dutton. He knows that to get voters on his side, he needs to go that angle, which is opposes the referendum, which is opposes the control, so, as you will, of the Aboriginal people, the welcome to countries that we incessantly have every time we have like a sporting event on or big national event on, stuff like that. Peter Dutton knows how to work it. On the other side, we've got someone like One Nations leader Pauline Hanson, who has been so against immigration. She was the one that said, look, fuck off for full, one of those like stickers there. She's so against it. She knows that it's now or never. Otherwise, we're going to do unrepairable damage that you can see in the UK, where you've got people that, as I said, you've got old people that can't even pay or turn on their, hot water system or heating, because people that have immigrated take precedence over citizens that have been third, fourth, fifth generation UK citizens. And I think, to me, that is wrong. I just think that times need to be tougher, borders need to be tougher. We don't owe anybody anything, and there's a reason that opening the floodgates, like Claire O'Neill has done in Australia, is only going to end in disaster and potentially a housing crisis that will never, ever end.
We're in danger of developing a society whereby some people are able to buy their 6th, 7th, 8th home, but people trying to get into the housing market to buy their first home simply aren't able to.
It's too expensive in New Zealand.
Price needs to reduce.
We want housing to be more affordable for New Zealanders. That is a major work stream of this government. The flip side of house prices falling for people who own homes is that they become more affordable for people who don't own homes.
Our government's, policies are not going to reduce house prices.